Yeah, studying for an exam can be really frustrating and really tiring for some students. And trying to plan for that exam, like creating a study schedule, is really difficult and daunting to many students because end of the day they just stop halfway or don't even stick to that routine. So today I've seen a lot of students who has made this mistake, and today I'm going to try to give you tips on how to create a study schedule that you would actually stick to. So stick with me, guys. You get it? Stick with me. Yeah, creating a study schedule can be really frustrating, but it has a lot of benefits to students, especially when you are actually going to study for an exam. What are the benefits of a study schedule? Now, the first thing is it helps you to achieve your goal easily and readily. Now, you don't have to rush into things. You take it bit by bit because you know, okay, I have this plan for this week, I have this plan for next week, and you don't have to rush things over. So you just take it bit by bit by bit. And another thing is it gives you enough time to complete your goals. It gives you, okay, you know, whatever time that you have allocated to this subject. Okay, I know I have 3 hours to this subject, so I have to study by three. I have to study this topic in 3 hours. I have 4 hours to this subject, so I have to study this topic 4 hours. So it gives you time to allocate to achieve those goals and not actually just rush into it. Another important benefit, it gives you control over your study plan. It makes you know, okay, what am I going to read now? What am I going to read next week? It makes you plan ahead of uh, of of your particular day, because seriously, just trying to study without a study schedule can be really frustrating. Maybe especially for when I do read. Maybe after reading chemistry, you might have forgotten what you read last time, and you're like, especially if you're trying to study chemistry, physics, biology, and English, like which I do most of the time. Now, after studying chemistry, you know you're going to physics, you know you're going to biology, you know the next topic should be English. But sometimes you might actually get mixed up. Maybe, especially if it's been a long time, maybe a week before you studied physics, maybe, and you were like kind of like, okay, what did I study last time? Is it biology? No, I think it's physics. No, I think it's English. And this can actually make you not actually follow the proper plan. But if you have a study schedule, you would actually be able to follow this plan accordingly. Another tip which is very important to those students who don't really want to study or who has less motivation to study is that it gives you motivation. Whenever you look at the study schedule, you know that okay, I have to study this. Now it gives you motivation even if you don't even want to study. Just by looking at your study schedule, it will actually give you some form of motivation which you actually want to study. Now, another thing, it breaks down those study time. It breaks down your study load. You know you have this allocated time to study, so you don't have to rush things. You take it bit by bit by bit by bit. So this is actually one of the benefits of having a study schedule. So now, after all of this, how do you actually plan a study schedule? Because it's not really as easy as you think. It's not just writing a pen and paper or writing stuff on a book or stuff like that, and you just want to go back to this book. Now, it's not really as simple as it is. There are so many things that you need to put into consideration, and those tips are what I'm going to give to you today. First tip you need to do is analyze your study routine. Now, what do I mean by study routine? You need to ask yourself some questions like, what is the best time you study? When are you less distracted? How long do you study? And also, lastly, what days are you free? Now, with all of this, you can actually use it to analyze your and plan your study schedule. Now, because it's more easy and it's more better to visualize your study schedule even before writing it down. That's what I always tell people. Try to visualize those things. Try to ask yourself questions. When are you free? What time are you free? What are you an early waker? Are you a night waker or stuff like that? You need to analyze those things before even trying to write down your study schedule. So always analyze your study routine. Even you have, I believe that you are someone who have been studying before, so you should know how you study. Even if you are not someone who studied before, I believe that you should have an idea of when you're free, when you are less distracted, how long you study, and just ask yourself these questions and try to put us into consideration when you're trying to build your study schedule. Another tip I'm going to give you is map out your study schedule. Now, it's always important to keep things into consideration. Stuff like extra curricular activity, your study time, your work time, your rest period, and some other things. You need to always visualize those things when you are trying to map out your activity, because you don't just want to congest everything into one study plan. You need to always look out that okay, what are the times that I have free period, what are the times that I have to work, what are the times I have to go on errand for family or friends or whatever. You always need to visualize those things. So map out your extracurricular activities, your work time, your rest period, and visualize this before you try to plan your study habits. So your study schedule rather. So always try to visualize those things that I think they are very important, because trying to just congest or pack everything into one study schedule will naturally help you, and end of the day you will find out that you can't actually do this for a long time. You will just quit after like 2 or 3 days. So always try to put those into consideration: your extracurricular activities, your work time, your rest period, so on and so forth. The third tip I will give you guys is allocate your study time. Now, after visualizing your plans, it's always good to allocate your time. Okay, what is the time I need to do? What is the time that I actually need for this subject? Like I always say before, if a subject is actually giving you a tough time, then I think it's more advisable you give that subject more time, allocate it more time. And please, one mistake a lot of students make is they always try to make their study habit look like someone else, especially if you have a scholar in your class who studied from 8 to 10, and you're like, okay, yes, I have to study 8 to 10. Now, you don't always have to make your study habit, your study schedule look like someone else's. You could make it look like your own. It should actually be your own. If you know your study routine, you know yourself. So always try to allocate time that's going to work best for you, and not something that's going to work best for someone else based on how smart that person is. Everybody is different, everyone is different, everyone is unique, I believe. So always try to allocate time to your subject. Give preference to those subjects which you think you are not really good at. Give more time to it. And to those subjects you feel like you're good at, I'm not actually saying you should give less time, but at least you should always know your priorities when allocating your study schedule. So, and also, like I said, always try to make it feel like your own study schedule and not someone else's. Now, one thing that I think I've seen a lot of students make, that is one of the most important mistakes that actually make people stop this study schedule maybe a day or two after, is they don't make time for excuses. Now, I know this might sound weird to you, but I think whenever you're trying to create a study schedule, you should always try to make time for excuses. Yeah, there's always time that you're going to be busy. You might not actually, you might say, okay, Mondays I'm free more of the time, and then something comes up, and you're like, all through that Monday you're really, really busy, or part of the Mondays you're really busy, and this will actually eat up your study time. Now, you always have to create time for a study schedule. Now, I will always advise you create a blank space. Now, this blank space, you might keep it maybe once or twice a week. Now, it's advisable that you shouldn't make it all the time. You should make it all of the time, because once you make it all the time, then your brain would actually want to use up those free space for other nonsense activity. But once you make it once or twice a week, at least it will cover up any extra space that you actually use unintendedly, or as in accidentally, or maybe there was something that you need to do that just came up urgently. Now, this could actually fill up the space. Now, it might not actually fall under that time. Maybe you set a blank space by 3 o'clock, and you're like, okay, by 3 o'clock, maybe something comes up. Now, it might not actually fall on that 3 o'clock. It might be, or maybe 2, 1, 12, something like that. But you could shift that your study time to at least that 3 o'clock. Then finish that work you need to do that 12. Then 3 o'clock. Then you have that time to study. So always try to create like this one or two blank space once or twice a week in your study schedule. Like I said, don't always make this frequent. Don't always make this your everyday stuff. Just make it once or twice a week, and I think it's okay that way. Another thing that I think is really important is give room for adjustment. Like I said before, you're not going to be 100% correct. There are days whereby you would not your study habit might your study schedule and your study routine might not fall in place. Maybe there's some time that something urgent might come up. You need to give room for adjustment. That, okay, if something comes up by 12 and I'm supposed to read it by 12, then I can shift it to this blank space which is by 3 o'clock, and continue my reading by 3 o'clock. So always try to make room for adjustment. Don't always feel like everything should be congested. So try to make room for adjustment. And like I said, try to keep space. Try to remain space for any excuses. Don't always put you study now, you study now, you study now, you study now, you study from morning to evening. Trust me, you become worn out. So try to put time for excuses whereby it is an accidental event that you need to attend to quickly. So always try to put room for adjustment. That's another tip I will give you guys is list all the subjects that you need to add to your study schedule. Now list all of them from the top to bottom. You can set priorities. You might not decide to set priorities. It doesn't matter. Just try to list the subject that you want to put in your study schedule. Not after writing your schedule, then you are like, oh, I remember I didn't put in math. I remember I didn't put in chemistry, or I remember I didn't put in history. Always try to list them out first before even trying to write them in your study schedule. So whenever you've written your study schedule, you know that okay, I've written all of the topic that is of high importance to me. So always try to list those subject out first before trying to write them in your study schedule. Another tip I'm going to give you guys is don't overwork your schedule. Now I think this is really really important. I've said it a lot of times in this video, but I think I need to lay more emphasis on this particular topic, on this particular stuff. Now you need to always lay emphasis. You need to always create time. Don't overwork yourself. Don't overwork your schedule. Don't if you can get back home by, let's say you get back home from school by 3. Now I think uh, from 3 to whenever you want to end, you should always have time. Space yourself. Give yourself rest. Give time for excuse. Give time for adjustment. Don't just put in study by 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 down to when you want to sleep. Now it would never, I'm saying it would never work. As in, I am 100% sure that it would never work. And that's a mistake a lot of students make, because whenever they want to create a schedule, maybe it's like 2 months to an exam or months to an exam. They're like, oh, I need to study 24 hours a day and everything. And no, it won't actually match, because you end up that before 2 days you have actually stopped studying. You have actually stopped sticking to those routine, because you notice that you're not actually sticking to it, and that's actually one thing that makes students lose interest in that study habit. Whenever they have missed first, second, or third study plan, they're like, "Ah, I don't think I can stick to it," and they just dump it, and they're no longer following those study schedule. And that is not actually what you want. I think the reason why you're watching this video is because you want to actually stick to a study habit and stick to it to the end. Now that is what I would say. Always try to create time, create space for excuse, create time for work, create times for rest period, and so on and so forth. So don't just overwork your schedule. Don't just overwork yourself that you want to do everything at once. You want to study from morning till evening, morning till night. You will actually burn out even before you actually complete a day study schedule. So always try to give yourself space. Don't overwork yourself. Another tip I'm going to give you is set realistic goals. Now I think this is really really important. Set goals that you know you can achieve, especially if you're starting to study new and you are starting a study schedule. Now I think it's really really important that you set goals that are realistic. Don't allocate time where you know you can't handle, like trying to set 4 5 hours and you know you can't even study for 2 hours and you go. So it's a study schedule. It should be based on how you read. It should be based on how you read. It should be based on how you can cope. Don't always try, like I said, don't always try to make it feel like someone else's study schedule. Make it feel like your own time. It's not a bad thing to study 1 hour a day. It's not a bad thing to study 2 hours. It's not a bad thing to study 3 hours. And I think that's actually even the scientific recommendation for studying just 3 hours a day. Now you can opt your study habit a bit, and that's preferable to you. But if you feel like you can't study for 2 3 4 hours, 1 hour is okay. You could take 1 hour, take a rest, then take 30 minutes extra. Just try to build up yourself more and more and more and more. And if you feel like okay, you can study more, you can study higher than this, then why not? You can go on. So always try to set goals that you know you can accomplish, and not goals that you know you can accomplish. Tell people about your schedule. Now I know it's really really difficult to stick to your schedule, especially when you're living with your family, parents, friends, and so on and so forth. They would always have an unexpected message or errand that they want to send you at that particular period you're reading. So you could already tell them, okay, these are the time that I'm free, you can send me a message at this period, or these are the times that I'm free, you can send me a message on this period. This is the time I'm reading, please, I really really want a quiet time. Now it's not bad. I know most of you might feel like my parents will agree, but at least it's worth doing. Now no parents will actually want to disturb their child whenever they are reading, because every parent wants you to study. That's the truth. Every parent wants you to read. So if you tell them that, okay, this is the time I'm reading, trust me, they would respect your time. They would, okay, once they know that you are free, okay, all the message they can compile it and send it to you all at once. So once they know that you are free, then they will send you those messages. Once they know you are not free, they will leave you to rest. So always try to talk to them, because they are the people who would actually distract you more even than your phone. So try to tell them, okay, this is the time I'm free, this is the time I'm not free. So they will understand and they will give you time to study. Another tip I want to add is make room for a new schedule. Now, sticking to a schedule is really difficult, but you notice that when you stick to that schedule, it's really easy, and you might want to increase your schedule for a longer time. Like if you have been studying for an hour, you notice that an hour is now becoming a little for you. You could want to increase it to an hour 30 minutes. Now you could create another schedule. It's not a big deal. I think it's actually even better, actually good for you to try to increase your time to study, because it will actually increase the potential and actually increase the results you see. The more time you study, the more results you see. So you could create a time schedule. You don't always have to stick to one time schedule all the rest of your life. You could create new one. Just follow the same tip that I've been giving you to create new schedule. Now, the last tip I want to give you guys is appreciate yourself. Now, it's like I said, it's really difficult to stick to a schedule, and lots of times you would fall away from those plans. You would might not actually follow those plans, but you need to know that, yeah, like I said, it's really difficult. You might not have time. It might not be big due to you. It might be due to your family, your friends sending you errand, and you are like always feeling frustrated that you are not following the schedule. Now, always appreciate yourself. 1 day, 2 days doesn't mean that you should abandon those at your schedule. Doesn't mean that you should let it go. Now, when I created a study schedule, there were numerous times that I skipped a lot of study habits just because I had something that come up. Now, but that doesn't mean that I have to abandon it totally, because I noticed that it actually helped me and it actually gave me the sense of motivation to study. So always appreciate yourself. If you study for a day, appreciate that you study habits. If you don't study for a day, appreciate it. Even if you don't study according to your study plan, because you have used basically almost all of the time, you could still study for an hour, 2 hours. Take it as your rest time. Even when you're trying to build muscle, there's always a rest time for you. You could take a day off. Maybe Mondays you don't exercise, so take that day as your day off. Take it as it's common. Everybody will go through this process. Every single body will go through this process. Trying to create a schedule can be really difficult and daunting, like I said. But with time, you get used to it, and always try to stick to the schedule. So that's my tip on how to create a study schedule. So if you like my video, please subscribe, like, and share with your friends. See you next time.